Hello and welcome to another episode of TFL Classics. Behind me is not our 2002 Toyota Tacoma, because it has been out of commission for the last few days, getting some major work done. In this video, we're going to tell you the story about how our 2002 Tacoma, as it turns out, was pretty sick, and how we definitely broke the budget getting our Toyota Tacoma fixed and back on the road. If you've been following Project Baby Yota, you know that a couple months ago we bought this Toyota Tacoma with 182,000 miles or thereabouts. And since then we have been using it regularly, towing with it, taking it off-road, driving it around on the streets, and it's a great little truck. We thought it was a super solid little rig, but as it turns out, we were a little bit optimistic. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll learn the lesson that we haven't. You want to get your truck inspected before you buy it. And yes, I know we have bought many trucks and have never done this, and well, it finally bit us. Here's what we learned. So we are off to Charlie's Toyota Repair here in Boulder, Colorado, who took on the engine work. Actually, Case was the first to realize it needed some help. What did you discover, Case?
Well, the first time I got into it, I put it in drive, and when that kind of dropped the idle, I noticed it was idling pretty rough. The whole truck was shaking.
Yeah, it did have a rough idle, and we thought it would be something minor. So we dropped it off at Charlie's. He ran a compression test, and it turns out cylinder number 3 was way down on compression. So significantly lower than the other 3. That's confusing. One cylinder was way down on the compression, the rest were fine. But unfortunately that meant the little Toyota needed a head job, basically, a valve job. And we kind of looked at some options, and ultimately this has to be done correctly because it's going to charity. We're auctioning out the truck to charity, and it's got to be a good truck. It's got to be done right. Charlie ended up sourcing a really nice head for the truck that is ready to go, and should mean that our little baby Yota is back in business. So let's go check it out. So I'm here with the man himself, Charlie, over at Charlie's Garage. He was the one that did the work, and he has got some really interesting things, kind of pearls of wisdom about these 2.7s, and I guess you were saying a lot of them got kind of used up, so they're kind of hard to find in the aftermarket world.
They really kind of are at this point. If you've got a 2.4 or a 2.7, this 4-cylinder engine is pretty tough to find.
So what's kind of the reputation of the 2.7? I mean, is it a pretty strong engine? Because you were saying you've seen a few other of these with the valve issues.
Yeah, that's really the only Achilles heel of the 2.7 is the valves.
Okay.
Yeah, they eventually all need a valve job. The margins just start to wear out on the valves and they start to leak compression.
So here we have some footage of what the job looked like, and as you can see, it's pretty in-depth for someone like me and Case, who are amateur home mechanics, to say the least. Now, this is the old head, and from the top, the old and the new heads obviously don't look very different. It's not until you flip the old head upside down you can see where the issue lies. This right here is cylinder number 3, and the clearances over time just get big in the actual valve seals. And as that happens, of course, the engine can't make as much compression as it did when new, and the downside of this is eventually the engine would start misfiring. You of course lose power, potentially have some emissions problems as well, so it's important that you get this fixed. Now, Charlie said that an engine like this, even with low compression on one cylinder, could go for many thousands of miles, but of course, because this is a charity truck, we have to get it fixed right, and it's got to be great for the next owner. Now, when we first went down this road to fix the compression, we kind of talked about finding a new 2.7 to replace this one, but you said that they're kind of questionable, right?
Yeah, the rebuilt units that are out there currently are usually, not always, but usually rebuilt with the cheapest common denominator Chinese parts.
Okay.
You know, and that's just honestly not a good thing. Toyota motors are good because they're made out of Toyota parts.
Since Charlie was able to rebuild our head using genuine Toyota parts, we will have preserved the awesome reliability that made us want to buy a Tacoma in the first place.
The interesting thing is, you know, when we bought it, there was that slight vibration at idle, and this is a great case of where you want to bring it to someone like Charlie before you go buy it, not after, just so he can run the compression. Because do you remember what the numbers were around on this engine?
I'm pretty sure 3 out of the 4 cylinders were up around 140, 145, which is where they ought to be, but cylinder number 3 was down at just less than 100 psi.
The silver lining in this is that the rest of the truck appears to be very solid according to Charlie. The brakes are good, the steering is good, and it's overall just super rust-free and well maintained. And now that the engine is fixed, it should be good to go for another several 100,000 miles. Let's see how it drives.
It's finally the first key turn with our fresh head. And yeah, at the moment I'm not really feeling any bad vibrations. It's in gear, which is when it would usually bog down enough that you'd feel that intense vibration, and now it actually feels like a truck is supposed to. But I'm really interested to see if getting it out on the road, it feels like it's got any extra power. I hope it does.
Well, the 2.7 is rated at what, 140, 150 horsepower?
They're not spectacular numbers even with this engine running the way that it's supposed to, but compared to what it was doing before when it had low compression, I'm hoping it's a little bit better. Being about 50 psi down on compression is pretty dramatic.
Yeah, that's pretty substantial, especially when you only have 4 cylinders to deal with.
The nice thing about having the 2.7 rebuilt rather than us trying to find maybe a junkyard, used 3.4 to put in this, those two things, they would have costed about the same. Getting a 3.4 for this wouldn't have been that much more expensive. But if you're finding a junkyard random engine that's not actually in a vehicle, you don't actually know what kind of condition it's in. Now we know that this is rebuilt, it's gone through, and it's good.
I was also talking to the Toyota guys and Charlie, and I guess the 3.4 conversion is like a monster job. It's not just a bolt-in, it's a whole new wiring harness too.
Yeah, it's a pretty involved process, but putting my foot in it, it's it's still not fast, but it gets itself down the road.
Yeah, and it's feeling a little smoother. All right, well, truck's running well. Let's head back to the office and tell you how much it cost. I said at the beginning of this video we broke the bank on this fix, and we absolutely did. It's a big job. It's time consuming and the parts are expensive. If you were to do this with Charlie's garage here, it'd be about $3,000 to $3,500. Now, we kind of worked something out with Charlie. We traded him our Daihatsu Rocky. The little Rocky is now part of Charlie's family, and then he paid us $1,000 cash to make up for the difference in the value. So, the Rocky is gone, we made a little bit of money, and we have a fixed engine. I think that's a fair trade, because really we're pretty much done doing videos around the Rocky. It's time to bring it on to a good home, and Charlie's wife is just loving the thing, which is pretty cool. So, there you have it. $3,500 later, and the Tacoma is back on the road, ready for action. Apart from that head, apparently there's not really much to go wrong with this truck, so whoever's gonna buy this truck is gonna have a sorted truck that's been done properly, and is well, it's not been butchered by me and Case, let's be honest. So, be sure to stay tuned for next time here at the Baby Yota series. We've got a really big transformation coming. Think Ivan Iron Man Stewart big, hint hint. On the side of this truck, we've got bumpers, a winch. It's really gonna come together in the next episode. Well, as always, this is Tommy, and behind the camera,
Case.
check out TFL Classics for the latest and greatest in the Baby Yota series.